G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the YouTube channel. How are we all doing today? I'm just on my way over to a dealership to see all the sights, but I do have a topic to talk about whilst I'm on my way there. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a topic that you know is near and dear to my heart, and that is, well, let's see, should you start on a small engined motorcycle? And I'm talking nothing above 250cc's. Now, as you've seen in my previous videos, the answer to this one can either be an overwhelming yes, or it could be a no, depending on you as a rider and the restrictions you're based on. So, if you're stuck with Lamb's bikes, it all depends on which ones you want. Now, if you're really terrified of bikes and you're just looking for something to see if you're comfortable on it, look, I get it. You might want yourself a tiny little 250, much like how I rode that little Gixxer 250. It wasn't fast, but it was a good little thing to begin on. This is not a way to go through here. And look, it wasn't a fast bike, but I had a ball on it, and I can see as a beginner you would enjoy doing something like that. But if you ride a little bit more, you're probably going to outgrow that motorcycle rather quickly. And look, there's nothing wrong with outgrowing your motorcycle, okay? Purely because, like, look, it happens. Say you get yourself a little 125, you're probably going to be pretty over it very quickly as opposed to buying a 650. Now, I understand sometimes it's not based on engine restrictions, and sometimes it's financial restrictions. Because look, a 600cc bike or 650cc bike is typically more expensive than a 125 or a 150, alright? Personally, I think if you're stuck with the smaller bike restrictions and you have the access to get yourself a CBR 250RR, like the old school ones, and you want a sports bike, there is really no competition, because that little 250 is godly compared to some of your other options. But if you're stuck in a place with restrictions and you need to get yourself a little R1 or something, remember the R1M, little 150cc, quick shifter, all the technology. Look, I think it all depends on your restrictions, your maturity level, your skill, confidence, and stuff along those lines, and financial, ability, because I don't recommend getting yourself a Ducati Monster as a learner bike if you have no money, because they cost a lot of money to maintain compared to some of your other options out there. So just be aware of things like that, alright? So just because you can afford the bike outright doesn't always mean you can afford to keep the bike or maintain said bike. So just be aware of that aspect of the motorcycle lands, because it's not just, you're not just buying a bike, you're buying everything along with the bike. You gotta buy your gear, you gotta be able to insure the bike. I know some of you don't, but it's a good idea too. And if you've insured the bike, then you got to pay for your registration for the bike, you got to pay for the fuel for the bike, and the bigger engines use more fuel, different engine types use more than others, stuff along those lines. So you got to sort of give yourself an educated guess to the matter, because sometimes you might find that what you want and what you can get are separate, and what you can get and what you can afford to keep are even separate than other options. We're going to change lanes again, because this is not the move skis. I thought that was another biker boy. It's just a scooter boy. Now, I know they get more respect than cyclists, but still, it's not what I thought it was. My nose keeps getting itchy. But look, if you're stuck in a situation where you get the option to buy your first bike and it's a 150 and there's nothing else, absolutely, get yourself on that bike, alright? There's no harm in getting on a bike, okay? As long as you got the two wheels down, you're going to be having fun, because most people can't ride to their full potential. And I'm serious, even the 150s, alright? Now, if your job is to just do a weekend twisty machine, mate, if you just buy yourself a little 155 or 150, you're going to enjoy the twisties all the time, because I'm telling you, man, you can enjoy one of those bikes to its almost full potential, and you're not going to be risking yourself low-siding as much, because there's no power to spin the wheel out from you. So if that's all you're after, a twisty weapon, believe it or not, a little 150 thumper is more than you'll need. In fact, it'll be so much fun, because you're actually going to be utilizing the engine to the max, and if you're not in the right gear, you'll know about it, and like stuff like that keeps the riding interesting. Oh god, the freeway's a mess. And I don't know about you, but having to ride the bike correctly as opposed to the bike doing mostly everything for you to begin with, I don't know, man, it's a lot of fun if you get to actually have to do the bike with your skill checks. Having the bike teach you how to ride properly, because if you don't, you're not going to have the oomph to move out of a gear, like a corner, into the next gear, or if you're doing that, like, you know what I mean, you're going to have to downshift to do it. If you don't know how to learn how to use a bike, well, then you're going to struggle with the bigger bikes, and not because of its necessarily hard, but because you're just going to use it wrong. Does that make sense? So the little bike will teach you all the fundamentals on how to use the bike properly. The only adjustment session will be how fast you're going versus how much RPM you're giving it, because on a bigger bike, obviously, you go much faster with less power. So there's a little bit of a you know, breaking in section when you get your new bike. But you know what? At least you'll have the fundamentals down. And also, if you're commuting a lot, these little, and you're not going on the freeway as much, these little bikes, fantastic. Also, fuel efficiency, god damn, they do not drink fuel in the slightest, dude. They are just weapons in that regard. So, all over the shop, www. Some things to consider is obviously their brakes aren't as good, but man, the bike's are usually like 160 kilos or less, so the brakes don't have to be fantastic for it to work beautifully. They're lacking in power. This is no surprise to anybody. You don't buy a 150cc and expect 1000cc performance just because the R15M looks like an R1M. It ain't performing anywhere near as fun. But certain of the bikes, you don't get as much technology, bar the R15M. You know, I'm glazing that bike because I love it, but I've never ridden one, but I still love it, okay? But yeah, so if you like technology, buy one of those, get a quick shifter, and absolutely have a fucking meme of a time. But even still, a 250cc class, they go fast, dude. Some of them, like the MC19/22 era, dude, you get a 250 in that regard, they're fast as my bike, which is a 471. Sometimes they'll be faster, actually. And in fact, in twisties, they will be faster. They are some of the best motorcycles money can buy. And if you're in Australia, especially, oh, dude, you can pick up an MC22 or 19 for anything from $2,000 to $6,000. And $4,000, usually they're in good condition for a bike that's, you know, 30 years old. But still, if that's what you're after, what are you waiting for? Just send it and get it, dude. Honestly, they're some of the best things you'll ever touch. But if you're just going for the single-cylinder sports bike trope, look, as you saw in my Gixxer 250 first impression video, they're not fast, but I had a smile from ear to ear the entire time. And like I said, if this is all you can get, it's fine. If you're trying to do freeway riding every day, in America mainly, because in Australia you can there's plenty of power for the Aussie freeways. But if you're going at the flow of traffic, say in America where they're going 70, 80 miles an hour, okay, maybe it's going to be hard to overtake. But in Australia, you're sort of locked at 60 miles an hour, and they don't let you go any faster because they just trying to fine you up to that point. So believe you me, in Australia, a little 250 is fine to start on. Will people make fun of you for buying one? Probably. Should you care? I don't know why you would. You're on a bike now. The goal is to get on the bike. It's not to buy the best possible thing imaginable. Especially as your first bike. You buy what you can get into it, get your license sorted, and worry about upgrading later on. Now, I'm not saying go out and buy absolute garbage as your first motorbike. That would be incredibly stupid. But just get yourself something you can afford, that is fun to ride, which is basically any motorcycle, brother. Even a scooter is fun to ride, and I'm gonna die on that hill. But just get out there, get on it, ride, and enjoy it. It doesn't matter what the CC is. Now look, 50 cc's on a street might be a little bit asking for much, but as long as you can do the speed limit, if you can get up to 100 kilometers an hour, the bike is more than enough to get on the road. If it's really slow, people might look at you funny or yell at you, but honestly, you're on a bike, who gives a shit? They'll yell at you regardless. They won't see you regardless. Doesn't matter how fast or slow you're going. So that's my take on the issue, ladies and gentlemen. Should you start on a little engine motorcycle? I think you should. You don't have to. It's not a matter of necessity. Don't think I'm that prudent about it. Should you start on one? There is no should. It's if you want to and you're thinking about it, do it. Should you start on a big engine motorbike? Okay, now that is a bit more of a probably not. It all depends on what kind of bike, I guess. But like, I'd say the argue to start on a 1200cc cruiser, or honestly even the 1800cc cruiser is not that different. But starting on something like that as opposed to a 1000cc sports bike, well, there's differences in characteristic of the motorbike in that regard. But that's just the nature of engines, man. If you want torque or horsepower, man, horsepower. If you do a horsepower bike, well, believe you me, you might end up in a hearse with all that power you're going to be trying to drive it. But I'm going to close out my vlog here because I've got a little bit more riding to go, and I just wanted to make that little video to see what you guys think. Israel Cemetery, interesting. Anyway, I'm going to go beyond that. Man, why they got the cemetery right next to a bloody shooting gallery? Such a strange area. But yeah, that's all I have time for, ladies and gentlemen. I do hope you take it easy, keep it cheesy, and as always, you know what, I'm not going to close it yet. If you're interested in getting that bike, boys and girls, there is no harm in doing it. Just buy one, alright? Enjoy yourself, take it as it comes. Get the 250, get a 150 even if you must. They're just fun, alright? As long as you're riding, you're going to be happy. So, I mean, look, I've been on this 471 for ages. I'm loving it. Is it fast? God, no. But I wouldn't change it. Am I sad I couldn't start on the Rebel 1100? Nah, not at all. It would have been nice, but the 500's fine for me. But yeah, that's all on my point today. Look at that Sandown Racecourse. I'm going to go there on the weekend. And yeah, take it easy, keep it cheesy, get a bike, ride it, and enjoy life. Peace, bye.